Good morning. My name is Ben Vinson. I am the Provost and Executive Vice President of Case Western Reserve University. On behalf of everyone at the university, welcome to Cleveland, welcome to beautiful University Circle, and to our campus. I hope that you find some time while you're here to explore our campus. Hopefully you'll have a chance to meet some of our students and our faculty and visit some of the many cultural attractions that are here in our neighborhood. We are blessed with having the Cleveland Orchestra close by, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, Art Museum. There's a lot happening right here within footsteps of our campus and within footsteps of this building. And so we do hope that you take advantage of some time to really indulge in everything that our area has to offer. Now, I know that some of you had a chance to join us last evening at our Innovation and Entrepreneurship space. This is called the Sears Think Box, and it is truly an amazing place. I hope you had a chance to see some of the multiple resources that we have there. I know my children were visiting about 2 weeks ago. I have two 9-year-olds and one 11-year-old, and they were taking advantage of using some of those 3D printers to print out Halloween skeletons and a catapult. So this is a truly amazing space, open for our community, not just our students, and really a transformational space for us, where you begin with ideation at the ground floor, and then as you move up, you're able to take your ideas from ideation to implementation and hopefully to launch into a small business. There's also a pizza printer in there, I think the first of its kind. My children didn't believe this. You can actually 3D print a pizza. There are at least two savory flavors, a good margarita pizza and a good spinach and vegetable pizza that our students invented. I think it's done in 3 minutes. You can print that pizza out in 3 minutes. So anyway, for those of you who haven't had the chance to visit ThinkBox, I really highly recommend that this be one of your first stops while you're here. If not this week, please plan on doing that when you return to Cleveland. So I'm delighted to be here today for this partnership that we formed with the great team from the Innovation Research Interchange to bring to you today's Digital Futures Conference. Now, as many of you know, Northeast Ohio has a long history in manufacturing. And today's topic of digital innovation builds on this important legacy in ways that are critically important to our economy and to the growth of this region. At Case Western Reserve, we have strengths in innovation and technology. We're always seeking ways to share this with the broader community. And I think that our friends from our IRI would agree that our partnership is emblematic of our shared values. So today's conference is also truly a university-wide event. Over the next 2 days, you're going to hear from members of the Weatherhead School of Management, the Case School of Engineering, the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as some of their graduates. And several of our centers and institutions on campus are also here to share their expertise. Before we move on, I'd like to take just a few minutes to recognize and thank some of our generous sponsors for their support and involvement. The wonderful sponsors of the 2019 Digital Futures Conference hosted by Case Western Reserve University and the Innovation Research Interchange are Lux Research, the LG Leadership Academy, Highland, Thin Air, Develop Me, the Cleveland Foundation, Jobs Ohio, and Jumpstart. And last but not least, I'd like to call attention to another of our sponsors for his generosity. Joe Mandato is a member of our Board of Trustees, and he's also a graduate of the Weatherhead School's Doctor of Management program. Though he's not attending the conference today, he believes firmly in cross-campus collaboration and cross-disciplinary programming. Thank you, Joe, for your support. Now, finally, I'd like to thank our team here at Case Western Reserve. Professor Youngjin Yu, could you please stand? Where are you, Youngjin? Oh, thanks. Youngjin Yu has been a driving force behind this conference as the creator of the Digital First Maturity Framework. He is a professor in the Department of Design and Innovation and is the faculty director of the X Lab at the Weatherhead School of Management. Professor Yu, you are yet just another shining example of the innovative work that's being done here on our campus. I want to thank you. I want to thank the entire Case Western Reserve University team and our partners at IRI for putting together such an impressive and quality program. And to all of you, I look forward to hearing more about your discussions. Please have a terrific and tremendous conference. It's my pleasure now to welcome Joe Fox, Director of Emerging and External Technologies of INEOS Composites and Chairman of Innovation Research, Interchange. Joe?
Thank you, Ben, and good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to, on behalf of IRI, welcome all of the attendees to our Digital Futures Conference, and a special welcome to our IRI member representatives and their guests. We are very excited to be partnering with Case Western for this exciting event. Digital transformation is impacting our membership across the board, and we are thrilled to have worked with Case to bring you this exciting lineup of speakers and sessions. IRI has been collaboratively creating innovation leadership solutions for over 80 years. The IRI brand fosters a mutually respectful environment for the exchange of ideas and discussion of challenges. We encourage you to take advantage of the wealth of knowledge and experience of the individuals in this room in enhancing the effectiveness of technology management, and specifically digital technology management in your own organization. Just a bit of housekeeping. Emergency exits are clearly marked in both the front and the rear of the room. Remember that the nearest exit may be behind you. I sound like a flight attendant. Restrooms are immediately adjacent to the ballroom, out the doors and to the left by the elevator, or out the doors to the right past the grand staircase on the left. And one last piece of business before we get started. Even though we are using our tablets and smartphones, I'd ask everyone to please silence all devices while we're in session. The next order of business is for me to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Young-Jin Yu. Ben has already given a little bit of introduction. Let me say a little bit more. Young-Jin is the Elizabeth M. and William C. Truhoff Professor in Entrepreneurship and Professor of Information Systems in the Department of Design and Innovation at the Weathershead School of Management here at Case. Young-Jin is the creator of the Digital First Framework, the impetus behind this entire event. Please join me in welcoming Young-Jin to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to our campus and this beautiful weather that we have engineered to welcome you here. We get this weather throughout the year. I just want to echo what Ben just said about team efforts. I'd like to thank all the IRI team as well as Case team, and it has been a tremendous journey. Also, I'd like to recognize, one thing that Case has that many of you do not have is a wonderful group of students. We have invited some of our best students, some graduate, some undergrad, to this conference. They are clearly recognizable because they wear X-Lab t-shirt. Paul is wearing that just as a show. So please do talk to them during the break. They're just incredibly smart. I turn to them all the times whenever I have questions, and I'm sure that they will be very resourceful. Also, just talk to each other, tell them what you do, and so that they will be more interested about working with all the legacy companies. So, the biggest challenge I have is that going through this digital first framework, maturity framework, and working with you, the assessment in an hour. This is a program that I typically do over 2 days. I have scaled it down like extreme diet. So sometimes, things may be a little bit rough, everyone should have a survey instrument paper on your round table. The purpose is that I'm going to go through the framework one box at a time. There are 9 boxes, And each box has 2 questions. And by the end of the talk, if I manage to go through entire 9, you will have assess yourself, your company, your division. We are not collecting it. You are not reporting it to your boss. You are not giving it to media. So it is on your own. So don't worry about it. You could keep it private and then do an honest assessment. The purpose that we do this here is to give you a chance to reflect on different dimensions of digital transformation, and then think about which session you want to go. What part of the conference will be most beneficial to you, and then pay a little bit more attention to those areas. So that's the plan. All right. Now this is a quote that has been used by many people who talk about digital transformation. I myself have used it. The essence is that Uber, Airbnb, Facebook, Alibaba, they don't have a physical asset. They are driving their business through digital assets. All right. Now something's wrong with my slide. Okay, so that should not have been there. So Mark Anderson, the founder of Netscape, once said, software is eating the world. All right, and then people said bits are beating atom. Here's the reality though: we human beings cannot eat bits and software. No one was eating software this morning. We all went to the station to get, berries and milks and coffee. So this is precisely, my slide is all messed up. The sequence is not quite right. I'm going to just work through. Hopefully the rest of the deck is correct. This is precisely the opportunity for legacy companies. The legacy companies know how to work with the physical assets and have a tremendous physical touch points with the customers. And every digital asset eventually need to be translated into physical goods and services. So the world of Silicon Valley is preaching us that we want to live in frictionless economy, but the world in which we live, a physical world, is friction full. So how can you then use this technology, digital technology, and help us to create values and capture values, not necessarily only relying on physical assets, but at the same time, without abandoning physical assets at the same time. So let me just tell you, based on what I just saw, the history of, I'm ad-libbing a little bit based on what is popping up on this random slide deck. So information technology, the evolution goes like this. When technology was introduced about 67 years ago in an organization, computer technology was separate from communication technology, and it was separate from, don't click, just keep it here. It was different from operation technology. Operation technology is what we use to produce our core product. So, Eaton produces electrical products and Goodyear produces tire. That product technology is what we call operation technology. And then, over the last 40 years of technology evolution was the efforts to combine communication technology and computer technology. Starting with local area network and then internet and then broadband and then wireless, that convergence created the huge firestorm of what we called IT-enabled innovation. That's what has happened over the last 40 years. So now we have, global supply chain system, management systems. We have ERP enterprise systems. We have e-commerce. We have social media, digital marketing. All of these are created and transformed through the use of the convergence of communication and computer technologies. By and large, however, the production technology was not touched. We're still manufacturing the products in old ways. It has gotten a little bit better. If you remember Michael Porter's value chain, the top part of the value chain is what we call supporting activities. The real work is the bottom half. This is where the inbound logistics and operation and outbound logistics and marketing takes place. No offense to those who work on the top half, but it was always supporting activities. That's the world of information technology in the last 40 years. What we are seeing now is that technology, information technology is now finally converge with a operation technology and actual product itself. So information technology is integrated into the very machines that you are using and the very product that you are producing. And the big drivers of those is the 5G and blockchain and IoT, and then the AIs and data analytics that take advantage of the data that come from those operational technologies. So I see big discontinuity. So before that, it was all about enterprise IT. It was under the leadership of chief information officers. Now the digital innovation that we are seeing now, it is often led by those who have a P&L responsibility, those who are responsible for growth. So a lot of times it is under the direction of CEO and COO and general managers and presidents and CMOs, and so it's and often sometimes CIOs. So what it means is that the technology in the Silicon Valley, these people live and breathe in the flat screen. Now the digital technology is moving out of the flat screen and entering into the real world. So many of them are trying, but very few are succeeding, and most are in pilot mode. The companies who are here are the ones who are really trying. So the purpose of this conference was not to just think about what we can do, but the story of those who are actually trying to do. Some success, more success, less. So let's learn from each other and assess. Digital innovation is not about technology. It's all about value creation and capture. So just give you a quick sign here. This is all about how you create a digitization and move into the digital value creation, and then how we capture value, and then we do digital capabilities, transforming digital capabilities. So to help you to understand this comprehensive transformation, we created this framework called Digital First, and it has 9 boxes. And I'm going to walk you through these 9 boxes real fast, and then we'll take one box at a time and then ask you to assess yourself. So the whole thing begins from the middle box, value creation. The question that we ask is that, are you creating values to your customers by leveraging digital technologies? Is your product enabled by or service enabled by digital technology? Now, in order to do that, you have to rethink your digital innovation strategy, the box up above, and then is your IT infrastructure ready to support that value creation, the box below. That also means that you need to rethink your operational model. So the box on your left, in the middle box. And then it also means that you need to have a very clear strategy of which market you enter, and then which what is your monetization strategy, knowing who is your competitors, who might be your potential competitors. And then in order to support all of these core functions, you need to think about your talents, the box on the left top corner, and the bottom of the back corner is how your organization is structured. And then the 2 front boxes, up and the bottom. The bottom one is your partnership needs to be rethought. Your suppliers, your channel distributors, the way you think about it needs to be changed. And then finally, you need to rethink about your leadership, how you're going to lead this digital transformation, who's leading it, and what is the governance in all of this. So with that, now let's dive into it. First one is digital value creation. So digitalization allows you to reimagine your product. So, this is thermostat, and then we put digital technology to change the way we interact with it, and then Nest came in, really changing the very meaning of the product, and then it is now part of a larger ecosystem. So this is a very simple, quick example of what we mean by reimagining the core product over time. Now, one way to think about it is that, is your product integrating different kinds of digital technologies? So essentially what we're saying is that there's a hardware layer of digital technology, there's a communication layer of digital technology, there's a data layer, and then there is a software application layer, a service layer. So as you think about reimagining your product, these are the 4 choices you have. Am I going to integrate digital technology to make my hardware more programmable? Do I want to create a connection? Do I want to generate data or pump data into it? Or do I want to create a different kind of services that it can function, not just the thermostat, but a whole bunch of other services? So that's essentially what companies are trying to do. When you do that, these products now have unique 7 properties. They become programmable. They each have unique addresses. They can sense the world. They can communicate. They can memorize. They can trace what happened to them. And then this is a big deal with the big data. They can associate distinct patterns in different domains. So these are the 7 properties that we have. And then with that, we are fundamentally changing the human user experience. So the user experiences are taking place always in time and space as I work with the tools and as I interact with others. And all these 4 variables are being mediated through digital technologies that I just mentioned before. So companies are now having ability to change user experiences through the means of digital technology in a very direct way. So the user experience is computed. So the first big shift that you need to think about is that, are we still making a physical offerings, or are we offering software-enabled digital layered embedded products? Are we competing on the basis of functions and price and features, or are we competing on the basis of computed experiences? So if you pull up your form, you have 2 questions essentially on that, or those 2 questions. So I'm going to pause for 10 seconds or so and tie up my shoelace. All right. Because I'm under extreme time pressure, so I'm going to move on. Hopefully you were able to finish your survey. The second one is a digital enabler. So a big part of it is that IT used to be used to support a linear value creation chain, right? So we have a fairly linear model of bring physical resource commodity into marketable goods and services and all the actions in between. In the digital world, you have to think about the value chain and then think of it as a value loop. And then creating IT infrastructure appropriately to support that loop and create that loop. So what do I mean by value loop, and what are the technology elements that we need to have? On the left-hand side of your diagram, it is what we called the offline physical world technology assets. On the right-hand side, you have technology assets and the part of the activities that you need to have for the digital world, online world. And then bottom of the screen is the one that you are directly interacting with users. So it is something that they know that they are interacting with. And then the one that is on the top half of the diagram is the one that is hidden from the end users. They don't necessarily know that these technologies are in place. So the bottom left-hand corner is what we call ubiquitous computing assets. These are the technologies that are with us all the time. They are mobile, they are wearable, and then some of them are implantable. And these technologies constantly interact with us in the real physical world. And they collect data from us, they monitor our behaviors, and so on. The embedded technologies are the ones that are hidden in the locations, the rooms and sensors and actuators and your smart grid, smart plumbing, smart house, smart infrastructure. All of these are part of larger technological infrastructure. Together with ubiquitous computing assets, these things surround human activities, constantly monitoring, understanding what people are trying to do. And that is forming the first half of the loop, which is a sensing loop. And with the sensing loop, what you're trying to do is trying to understand what people are trying to do. So there, we're trying to do predictive and prescriptive analytics rather than descriptive analytics. The purpose is to generate and compute a precise temporary insight about users' intent and future actions. Now, once you gain such an insight, the bottom one, algorithmic service, is what triggers the actions in the real world. So Uber is just sending a car to your door. That's an algorithmic service. Spotify is playing music that it thinks you like to have because you are having a dinner at your house with colleagues, right? Nest is controlling the temperature because it thinks that you are having people, large number of people in your house. Body temperature will keep the house warm, so it's going to cooling it down with an anticipation. Right? So these are the actions triggered by algorithms, more or less autonomously, but based on the information. So the lower half of that is the shaping loop. And then this is a loop. This is never-ending loop. The product is in place, constantly monitoring human activities, generating data, feeding back, and getting smarter and smarter with the interactions that users have. The more loop you create, the more value you create, the more stickier relationship that you generate with your users. And everyone is trying to build this loop in the digital world, Google and Amazon and Facebook. And why not physical players? Because you actually do own many of these touch points. And with that, what is happening here is that so I think what happened was that we had some changes in challenges in file transfer this is massive large file, and I ended up sending a older version because I recognize labels that I put in academic version. So anyway, I'm gonna continue to improvise. If you look at the old history, the technology was initially built for mass production and mass consumption. And then later we became a little bit more sophisticated market segmentation. And then recently we're doing personalization. What we are seeing is hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization is when a company is dealing with the same user differently depending on the time and day and context. Right. So this is like, yesterday you ate cereal in the morning. Today we suggest that you eat egg because you ate cereal yesterday. Type of interaction. Here again, the key here is having this temporal dynamic insight that users want and being able to activate it. So two core capabilities that companies need and technology need to support are your ability to compute the insights, the most precise and at the moment insights, real time or near real time. The second one is your ability to produce the material enactment of your products in the real setting. So the terms that I have here is for the academic audience. I actually changed all of these more practitioner-friendly terms. Hopefully we'll get to the right version after the session. But essentially it is your ability to produce a product and service with that insight in the real world. It is not enough for physical companies, traditional companies, to have insights. In the digital world, the Googles and Facebook, all they need to do is show you another screen. But it is not enough for physical manufacturers and service companies just to show hey, we think you're hungry, think about the picture of a food, right? That's not good. You better deliver the real food that is actually good and consistent with your brand promises. And that is the operational capabilities that digital companies think discount its importance. They think, oh, we can do this. Like, look how well Uber and WeWork and these companies who are breaching into the physical world from the digital world, how well they do. It's a really bloody difficult part of the business. So what you need to think about here is creating the loop, creating the velocity and veracity of the loop, depth of the loop, how far you can look outside, and then granularity of the loop. Right? So you want to be precise, right? Uber can tell you need a car, but if Uber can tell you that you just need a seat, then their ability to deliver the product at the right time, right moment, right amount is the way you can win the competition. So you need to do this through open innovation, open platform, so APIs and so on. So you don't necessarily do all of this by yourself. So a lot of IT vendors are now scrambling to create solutions that meets the need. You will hear some of them today. So, and then the key decisions that you need to make is which stack am I going to offer in-house, and which stack is going to be outsourced through our partnership in the open innovation platforms. And so the IT architectures are moving away from a traditional single hierarchy, single homogeneous information type to heterogeneous and distributed control. When you move into the open innovation, open platform, you are not controlling what third-party developers are doing. So you have to get ready to embrace it. I'm going to skip this. And then, so big shift from an IT enablement standpoint is that is your enterprise system is to support a linear value chain, or is your system is moving into cloud-based digital platform to support a value loop? Cloud is not just cloud, but cloud is the one that will help you to create this loop to cover people's activities throughout their lifestyle. Are you still working on descriptive data, or are you moving into prescriptive and predictive analytics? So I'm going to pause here. You have a few seconds to look into your slide, the survey. All right, moving on. Innovation process. Traditional innovation model is innovation is occasionally done by few selective smart people in innovation lab, R&D department, tech innovation centers, and then we go back to the normal business, right? There are people who are doing innovation, there are people who are doing operation. This is what fast cycle innovation model looks like in the digital world. Innovation never stops. You cannot sustain this pace of innovation by having dedicated people doing innovation at a particular time. So think about innovation where you have to involve everybody. So if you think about the evolution of innovation, it began with R&D lab doing stage gate model to produce new product. And then companies realized, like a P&G said, oh, Walmart came to us and they gave us the data of POS data. By looking at the data, we gain a lot of insight about our buyers. And then they said, if we gain this much insight from buyers, what if we actually go to the home of the users and how they used our product? So we have a human-centered design as a primary innovation tool for a while. And then we moved on to look, if we look at small number of users and learn so much from them, what if we open the floodgate using the social media and gain insights from the crowd? And then we have billions of products that are pretty much silent all these years, and they're just waking up. And we have something to say, right? So now you're having a situation where all these light bulbs and garage doors, your car, your phone, chairs and furnitures and TVs, billions of products now can speak to you. I know what my users are doing. Let me share their insight, right? This space, when this building was built, has a programmatic goal. This is supposed to do X, Y, Z. Now, we do not know what the goal was. The architect, is long gone, and we are just using the product, right? This building, what if this building remembers its goal and recording it and providing insight about how this particular room is performing and providing further information. Every time you're performing a surgical operation in a hospital, the tools are supposed to do certain things. It was designed with a purpose and goal, and they know what happened. The tools know. And then they can provide that insight, right? Your car is supposed to do certain things, and then your car can provide a lot of things. Is your innovation process ready to take advantage of these billions of tools generating amazing amount of data, feeding back into your AI algorithm, generative tools to rethink your product design, next generation product. So the innovation always has been in the core, but innovation now needs to be at the edge. Innovation cannot be done by few people at a few particular time. It really needs to be relentless, and you have to rethink how you're organizing your innovation. So with that, shift innovation process, linear stage gate, inside out innovation to agile, nonlinear, outside in innovation. Innovation by few people and innovation by billions of machines and people everywhere around the globe 24/7. Is that where you want to go, right? So another 2 questions. Honest assessment of where your organization is. Moving on, operation, digital operation. So how do you then actually manage your value loop? What are the processes, right? So we're understanding that the key is understand what is the digital asset and how we transform digital assets into valuable products and services, right? So I always begin with this example. Which one of these 2 are real? You have a e-ticket and you have a boarding pass, right? Before the e-ticket was officially allowed, legal form of product, the real ticket always was paper ticket. And then digital information was created as an outcome of the real transaction that led to the production of a physical product, ticket. The ticket has to be kept safe so that you can actually fly. Nowadays, when you sell the ticket, the real product, the ticket, is never become physical. The ticket remains as non-physical digital asset in the ether of cloud somewhere, right? United, server, Delta. And then they become physical only when the physical evidence of the ticket. If you're anxious type, as soon as you purchase the ticket, you print the ticket and keep it in a folder. If you're a millennial, cool, relaxed person, digital native person, you probably have an app, and you will not think about the trip until you show up at the TSA line, and then you pull out your app and then show the ticket, and the ticket will be gone a few seconds after you go through the line. Right? So here, the real ticket is neither of them a real ticket. Real ticket is something that we cannot see. Same thing is Uber, Google's autonomous vehicle. In old days, when navigation was the primary function of Google Map, when car moves, blue dot moved. The beginning of the Uber's autonomous vehicle was when Google engineers realized that we can move the blue dot first in the cloud and let the car follows. So what happened here is the real car is the blue dot in the minds of the Google engineers. And then the physical car that we see is simply a projection of the real car, the blue dot, in the real world. And there's a lot of complicated engineering work that needs to be done to reduce the latencies and all of that, and this is why 5G is so critical. But essentially, this is a paradigm shift. Right? Car is created in the cloud first and foremost, and it remains as a physical, digital bit. Right? But that car doesn't do anything for me unless it shows up as a real car in my front door. That process is also a part of the value creation. So the physical goods are avatar of a real digital products. So this is what used to be our value chain process. Here we have raw material, transforming it, and we create a product, and we sell it to our buyers. Right? I'm emphasizing the word buyers, and I will come back to that later. Right? Now what we are seeing is a different way of looking at value loop, And I just presented it more like a similar way that we think about value chain. Here, the value chain is transformation of data. So data needs to be encoded, right? So human actions are encoded through the sensor. That is a very important part of your data design. What data is being extracted? Data is an exercise of your theory. Your theory of the world, what data is valuable, will determine what kind of sensors you're going to put. The sensor will then encode and produce, and that data needs to be aggregated. That data needs to be computed. That computation will generate insight. That insight will then be translated into physical goods and services, what we would call printing. And then that printing will then lead to actual use. So users will actually use it, and then that generate another form of sensing. That sensing goes back to the loop, right? So this is sort of like a value creation through the lens of data, digital assets. So the question is that, do we think about our operation model along the line of this way? So we visited one of the data company. They talk about data product. They talk about shipping data as their product. They actually do talk about value chain. Right? What they lack is the actual physical manifestation of their product, because this is a digital native company which do not have to come out to the real world for them. So value co-creation loop is on-demand, dynamic, temporary assemblies of physical and digital resources to produce a value at that particular moment in time. So this is an example that I cut out. So every digital business is actually printed, right? So if you think about Amazon website, this is the created at the moment when you go to the Amazon store. You will never be able to see Amazon store same website twice. You will never see Facebook page, same Facebook page twice. Even if you use the same Google keyword, if it is a very popular keyword, it is impossible to get the same search results twice. This is the nature of digital business, right? So how can you adopt that dynamism of digital insight into physical offering? This is the key capability that traditional companies need to gain in order for you to act digital first. Right? I don't want to think about physical asset first, and then I'm going to collect digital asset and then enhance my ability. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's a physical first. Digital first is that now I have all these physical touch points and physical product, but I want to reconfigure the way I deliver my services, but primarily driven by the insights that I gain from digital technologies. So here, this is how Amazon operates, right? They have web, they have app, they have Echo, they have a touch button, and then they have a physical store, and then they even have a Whole Food. Underneath all of this, essentially it's the same operating logic. They have data, they have algorithms, they have UX. So their store, Amazon Go, is simply for them a different UX design. It's not app, it's not web, it is physical UX design. Underneath, it's pretty much the same organizing, operating logic. How do you transform the way you think about your operational business in such a way is what you need in digital transformation. So if you think about traditional manufacturing companies, they seek scalable business. They are pre-assembled product. Traditional service model is that it is personalized, it is real time, it's not pre-assembled. Digital first is trying to bring these two things together. It's algorithmic, therefore it gives us, it is data driven. It allows us to do things in a highly personal and dynamic way, but at the same time, we are able to do this in a real-time and scalable way. So another shift, operation, linear value chain for the transformation of physical resources into dynamic digital value loop. From early and permanent binding, so this is a term that I changed it. So what I mean is that your single bundled product have a single product into your survey should have a more updated version of the correct language that is more easy to understand. This is again the academic version of the language. So let's go to the survey. Take few minutes to fill out your survey. All right, now we're digital organizing. So most organizations are organized around their products, not users. So organizations produce their products and sell it to the buyers, and then they never actually see the users. Buyers and users are two different things, right? You may buy a product for your wife, but you are not actually going to use it. You may buy a product for your children, but you are not actually using it. So understanding who are actually using it and buying it is two key questions. This gets a little bit more complicated when you are B2B companies. So that your client, right, and then your users of your actual product, how do you remain connected so that your users of the product or parts that you produce is somebody that you want to remain connected, right? Also add value to them as you build. So the new logic that is emerging is that we don't really think about buyer. You know, oftentimes people go for the servitization model. So give me your product for free. I'm paying for the use. So if you really want to go into that use-based servitization, you really have to rethink your whole strategy. The language matters. Performance metric needs to change. Your entire organization is organized around selling product rather than understanding users, right? So it means that your competition is shifting. You've been thinking about competition based on the moment of purchase around the buyer instead of use. So this is a consumer product example, right? So when Moen is selling their faucet, they will speak tomorrow. But it is they're competing with the other manufacturers, Delta. But when they think about use, they're competing with all the other products in the kitchen at the point of use, the refrigerator. So they're competing with LG and Samsung and Whirlpool, just as much they're competing with other companies, or Alexa for that matter, particularly as they try to move into the connected kitchen products. Many organizations also are organized around processes. You really need to think about user journey, not process. When I present this, people often think, oh, I thought the process and journey are the same thing, and nothing can be further from the truth. This is an example of a hospital, for example, right? So we talk about end-to-end user experience. So this is a patient experience, end-to-end patient experience. So patient is visiting hospitals. So now I have a schedule, and then I checked in, I do some operation, and I'm discharged, and I'm getting bills. Now that's the journey from the patient. Now from hospital perspective, the processes are, I have a processing process, scheduling process, I have check-in process, and I have operating room process, I have a discharge process, and I have a billing process. The customer touch points in this very process-centric organization is just one or few of those processes in the larger processes that you have. So there is no one who's actually thinking about end-to-end user journey. It is users who have to navigate through, jump loop from one process to another, finding a way from scheduling to the billing. Sometimes when you go to these large process-centric organizations and wonder, how come they ever get anything done? right? This is why when you have some issues with your, telephone and cable utility bills, the experience is so frustrating, right? Because these are really process-centric organizations. Hospitals are incredibly process-centric organizations. So the bad news is that if you're very well, organized around processes, it'll be very difficult for you to flip your logic into journey-centric. And your journey, customer journey, probably will suck, right? It'll be very difficult for you to create an app that allows users to have like holistic experiences. It's not because your IT folks cannot build cool looking app. It is your process that is broken. And no matter how beautiful your app may look, you cannot hide broken processes. The process actually is not broken, it's the journey that is broken. Your processes are too good. Right? So the challenge is, all right, so how should we rebalance it, right? I'm not saying to get rid of processes and just do whole thing around journey, right? But you gotta think about what are the touch points in your processes. Somebody needs to connect the dots, and somebody needs to optimize the journey and go back to the process owners and say, hey, can we do some trade-off here, right? So that you may lose something, but we gain whole. And because users will enjoy this experience a lot better. And how do you do that? Who will be leading that conversation? Most organizations don't even have that conversation. So this is a big organizing shift that you need to think about. You cannot do digital first unless you change your organizational structure from product-centric to user-centric. Your metric will be different, KPI will be different. And then also how you move from process-centric to journey-centric. So we have questions that I'm going to ask you to fill out. And then we have 4 more boxes to finish. Then I'm done. All right. So digital talents, right? So digital talents requires, in my view, 2 things: the mindset and skills. So mindsets are like what we call design attitude, the people who are interested in learning about users' experience, empathy. You cannot create great digital user experience unless people who work in your organization are interested in user experiences. Empathy is a key thing, right? Evidence-driven, user-obsessed, collaborative, shared vision. They need to know what we're trying to do from a end-to-end user journey perspective. So what are the core skills? You need design thinking, you need computational thinking, data analytics, prototyping, digital business model. Can we teach these skills to your current workforces? Do everybody need all of these? Probably not. Some level of introduction is going to be needed. How do you retrain some of your workforces who may not have this type of skills? How do you create new form of partnership within the organization to bring these folks together? Right? These are the very important questions that you need to have with your HR people. When they recruit new talents, how are they going to provide the talent pool? Some of these skill sets are not even on their radar screen at the moment because they don't really know what are the skills that you need for you to transform your business, core business. Right? They're still looking for material scientists, but what you want is someone who can do computational analytics in material science. Right? You need a mechanical engineers who can do 3D models and then who knows how to use generative design from sensors and generate 1,000 different design alternatives overnight, and then do the simulation in the virtual world before they decide what to do. Right? Some of these autonomous vehicles have been driven 10,000 hours before they ever hit the real road, right? So, sometimes you wonder, like, which one's safer? I will never have like 10,000 hours of training before I actually hit the road. And these are the algorithms we're trained. So, and then we have to work with these AIs. the tools. So it'll be, so people have passion, computers don't have passion. Humans have biases. The computers do have their own biases, sometimes known, sometimes unknown, right? Humans are inconsistent. Computers are incredibly consistent. So how can we leverage these different kind of tools for learning, pattern recognition, decision making? There's a whole host of complex issues. How should we rethink our training in light of the emergence of these, incredibly powerful computational tools that are invading our workplace on an ongoing basis? Certainly, we should not repeat the same old training model the way we used to, because many of the things that we used to ask people to do will be done by computers. So why do we waste our time teaching these skills which will not be used? Chances are in the future, the AI tools will be just like a spreadsheet, and so a lot of these AI pattern machine learning tools will be drag and drop, and I have data, boom. So how do you train people to generate data, feeding data into the model, choosing right model to make their own decisions, right? Just one domain. How do you do that? So these are the questions that we really need to wrestle with. Not that I have all the questions. We will have some panel conversation about some of the companies who are really struggling and trying to break through from these areas. So the next question shift is focusing on functional expertise and experiences, moving on to core digital skills and attitudes, focusing on human workforces, and focusing on man-machine hybrid workforces. How do you understand the different roles and skills that they have as you put together your plan, human resource talent plan? So the next question is here. So digital talent. Now, digital partnership. So traditional partnership is essentially shaped by Michael Porter's 5 forces. You think about your supplier, you think about your buyer, you think about potential disruptor, and then you think about regulators and new threats, and then your current competitors. And then you kind of like think about what relationship do I want? Sometimes you collaborate with your competitors, forming alliances and consortium. Sometimes you work with your preferred suppliers and distributors. Sometimes you create a whole ecosystem, just internalizing them inside your organization. That's how we used to think about. In the digital ecosystem, we need to rethink it in the context of digital ecosystem. Digital ecosystem, as I alluded earlier, is rethinking your product strategy, not just as a single bundle product, but rather think about 4 different distinct layers that are needed in order to enable your product, the functions of your product. They are hardware, software, network, and data. Any one of these could be kept inside or open to the world. So when you flip this, and then opening up one layer to the rest of the world, essentially you're turning your product into a platform. When you do that, you have to have a very concrete, detailed plan who's going to be your users. Most likely the traditional users will be your users, but who will be your supplier, right? So GE created Predix platform, right? So the analytics layer, the software layer, is the one that they open, And then they went to Eaton, they went to other manufacturers, many of them are their competitors, and then say, hey, join our platform. Sounds pretty good, right? But what would be the incentive of their competitors to join that platform and providing the data to them? So it's important for you to think very carefully who will be the one who's creating one side of the market, not just the other side of the market, right? Just having platform strategy at a high level is not good enough. Oftentimes, these platforms require what we call boundary resources. These are a theoretical term just to say APIs. The companies, there's an empirical research that have just came out The companies who have open APIs have much greater return on investment than other companies who do not open their APIs. It's like a 10x return on investment IT. So think about that, right? Am I going to create an ecosystem, and how? And which layer am I going to keep? Which layer am I going to open? Who am I going to bring to my ecosystem? And then chances are your ecosystem is going to interact with someone else's ecosystem. It could be digital native ecosystem. It could be another physical native company who create a digital ecosystem, and then you may need to interact with it. It could be your retailer ecosystem, and then you may have to coexist in that ecosystem. What is your position? Do you allow their APIs to come into your ecosystem, or you block them? I mean, these are very important decisions that you need to think about, which will determine the scope and the size of your ecosystem. It's all boils down to two issues: control and generativity. The reason that we create ecosystem is what we call generativity. Your product is doing something that you never thought that you would do. That's the simple version of what we mean by generativity. When car designers are designing a car, they intend the car to be driven as a car. And then the engineers in the car companies actually design it. But when Apple does the App Store, the majority of the functions that Apple iPhone does or smartphone does are not coming from Apple engineers or Google engineers. It's coming from the rest of the world. And they're doing something other than being a phone. That's the very basic idea of generativity. And that's why we create ecosystem. And that's why those ecosystems are such a powerful tool. But then you lose control. So how much control are you willing to give up? Is there legal liability issue? Is there value capture issue? These are the questions that you actually need to ask and carefully calibrate the degree to which you open up your APIs. There's always a trade-off. So, question is that, are you thinking about your partnership through the lens of 5 forces? Are you thinking about partnership through the lens of open ecosystem? Are you thinking about them as a third-party complementers, two-sided market? Uber, I think yesterday announced that they do not have drivers, period. Now, that's a legal argument, but also technical arguments too, right? Who are these people then? Right? They said these are third-party complementers, and then we are enabling them to do their job. That's what we do, right? How are you willing to think like that, like a flip your model? Maximizing value capture at the point of sales versus maximizing value co-creation throughout the loop. This is a partnership. So it's not just you capturing all the value, but the entire ecosystem is benefiting, and then you divide how much value you're sharing. All right, so another set of 2 questions. Now it is telling me that I have orange light and 7 minutes precisely left. So digital strategy. I'm going to just boil it down in the interest of time, and boil it down to 3 key things that company needs to worry about. Company needs to produce product, and then they need to make money. What is your revenue strategy, right? First one is you sell product the way you did. Even after digital transformation, you capture value by selling product, and then you extract value at the point of exchange. Second one is that you capture value through value loop on an ongoing basis through recurring revenue model. The third one is you creating a platform by which you generate value by leveraging your indirect network effects. So the first one is double down on your physical product. Digitalization does not mean you give up your physical product. You double down on your product. If you do have a solid, high quality physical product with a brand recognition, you can add digital layer, even ecosystem, as features of your product, and then you can charge more. If you can get away with it, this is a strategy that you can choose. Apple, despite of all the things we talked about, has been doing this strategy over the last 10 years. Apple makes money by selling iPhones, and ecosystem for them is just a feature to make iPhone a desirable product. They have super duper powerful brand, and they can get away with charging $1,000 for a phone, and then they've been doing it over 10 years. That's a model. If you can replicate it, very powerful model, nothing wrong with that. The second one is going service, right? So, all right, GE was trying to do this. Many companies call it servitization. Either I give it away or I give you at the same price that I used to, but now I'm monitoring your product, right? The original, the final slide that you will all receive differentiate two different types of service context. One is a service context where your service is utility driven, right? So your GE selling engine, and then you just want to sell uptime, right? You're selling brakes, pads, and then you're selling, brakes, braking rather than brakes, pads. So each time you land, you collect landing fee. Each time you're flying, you're paying flight fee. So the core there is that your ability to monitor the performance of the machine in a reliable way, that is your core thing, right? You don't want to surprise, hey, today's my flight engine performance is not as the same as yesterday. You don't want that. So stickiness comes for creating a very reliable performance. Here, ironically, therefore, digital transformation requires high-performing machines as the basis. If you do not have a trust on your machineries performing in a high reliable way, you don't have a digital strategy. So digital strategy in this context requires a really good, robust production. And this one is when you do not necessarily have brand recognition, or you're B2B, where you're not necessarily will be able to charge extra, but this will create a new extra potentially revenue stream by creating a servitization. Second type of service is more consumer-related services. This is very different. So, I want reliable engine, but my Netflix should not be reliable. I don't want to watch the same. I love Breaking Bad, but I do not want to, Netflix show me Breaking Bad every day, reliably. I want Netflix to tell me what will be an interesting movie that I should watch tomorrow. It's somewhat different, but not the same, right? That's the trick. Service in this context has to have an ability to predict what users want, given the context, right? It's a weekend. Youngjin is likely to watch it with his wife versus, he's alone by himself or a bunch of guests. This is what he's most likely to enjoy. Ability to understand the context and deliver what you want at the time is the key differentiator in this particular case. So the last one is what we often call the network effects, right? So you have this data, and then you have on the user base, you have a strong, tight user engagement, active install base. People are using your product. Now you're turning it into your monetization strategy. Who else wants to take advantage of this thick, ongoing relationship that I have, right? So, when you rent a truck, no one rents a truck for the sake of renting a truck. That means that I need something. Now, can we anticipate what that something means and creating a whole host of ecosystem, creating more powerful platform user experiences so that people can capture it, right? Someone comes into the hospital and being discharged. There's a whole host of things that happen once they go home. How can I orchestrate those activities? And then now I have active install base with the users. I'm chronic disease and I'm talking to the doctors and they need something. Now, how can we help to create more value and capture value by providing that plugin? So the strategy shift from vertical market to the right, choosing right layer, and from product-based revenue model to dynamic value-based revenue model. So 10 seconds on this question, fill it out. because I only have, according to this clock, I have 30 seconds. The last one is a leadership. The question is, who's leading it? Is it a good idea to have one single jar? Or do you want to have a group committee? Do you want to have people who coming from consulting world or digital native companies, lending into traditional company with ton of experiences in digital, driving it? Or do you want somebody who has an experience in your local vertical context, right? I have my own opinion, but I think it really depends on your particular business and your organizational context. These are the things that you need to think about, right? You know, bank, Barclays Bank in London, UK market, they have AI enabled their marketing outreach. There's so many product lines that they could reach out to the customers every day. So they created a system where there is a traffic controller. So the chief data officer, strategy person, became the traffic control. There are all these airplanes, right? Digital campaign that are lined up. And then they meet, test, you know, all the product owners meet on a weekly basis, prioritizing which airplane will take off first, right? They have to justify why it needs to hit. There is a certain rule how many times you can hit your customer same time. Everybody has a score, right? This person can tolerate 5 social media marketing. This person can tolerate only 1. Based on the response, they update the score. So that changes who's going to get their spam email and social media exposure more often, right? This does not happen randomly, right? And the legal people need to be part of this whole, you know, this is banking. So all these governance of their digital offering had to be carefully calibrated and developed. It's not really technology issues. It's very careful execution of business strategies. So who's going to lead it? Top down, bottom up? How do you bring new ideas to your organization? So you're going to hear from companies like a Plug and Play, where connecting companies at a different level and different organizations, and then companies who are really trying to do it bottom up, organic training. Many of you are doing both. How do you do the balance, right? So the last one, digital leadership. Is there a leader or there's no leader? Multiple conflicting digital products. Do you have a coherent roadmap? We all understand this is where you're going. So this is the final slide. If you have completed your score, you could add them up. So digital native is digital native companies. They live inside screen. They never come out. Physical native companies, many of you are physical native companies born in the world of physical assets. Many of you have embraced digital technology, so you have become digital first, physical first. But the one that is mostly contested place is what I would call digital first, because this is where digital native companies are coming from their angle, and then you're also moving in there. This is where the competition will be over the next 10, 15 years. This is big opportunities and scary place as well. So with that, I'm going to just put up our plug. There's courses, and we have information about our X Lab, and then you have this survey assessment that you're going to use. And then hopefully this information that you did today, the assessment, gives you a little better sense of how the conference is organized, what we're trying to accomplish, and give you some roadmap for the program. Maybe just one question before we take a break, like any particular questions? Yes, sir.
Can you make this transition while you're still as part of the ongoing business, or do you need to form sort of a parallel NewCo that is building these capabilities on the side. There's a lot of experience that people have had where trying these initiatives, even with a top-down strategic plan, because they get killed by the performance.
Right. Yeah, so I think it really depends on where you are, your organizational culture and strategy and market space, and what you're trying to do with the new code, right? If you do rush new code, I think you can also make some rushed decisions. I think GE Digital is a good example. There are some of the decisions that they made because they were having their own P&L responsibility and rushed it a little bit too much, right? So again, so thank you. So, all right, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.